Woo! Hey, this is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. And we are going to be hitting a whole lot of things today. We are going to be talking a little bit about the Venezuelan, we're going to be talking about the Venezuelan protests that have been going on in the streets. And the president, Nicolás Maduro, claiming victory in that country despite the disputed election. We're going to be talking about those protests, the thousands of Venezuelans that have been taking to the streets. There's videos that show crowds gathered in the Venezuelan capital. Riot police face off with these demonstrators. And then in a separate city, this was really interesting to see this video. In Coro, it was a statue of the former president, Hugo Chávez, and the statue was completely toppled. Now, that was Chávez was the president before Maduro. And, the left has celebrated both these dictators here in the United States. Believe it or not, the opposition has disputed Mr. Maduro's declaration of victory, deeming it fraudulent and saying that its candidate Edmundo González, Spanish names hard, González, he won convincingly, 73.2% of the vote. Okay, so exit polling shows that he actually won. And Maduro is falsely claiming victory. So we're going to get to that because this is very important. It's going to have an effect on your life. And the reason why I'm bringing it up today is because we're not too far off from what's going on in Venezuela here in the United States. And it's becoming more and more apparent. So we're going to also talk about Joe Biden and his calls for the Supreme Court to change it. Joe Biden, he wants to establish term limits in addition to an enforceable ethics code. He also wants a constitutional amendment that would strike down the immunity in place for presidents that currently exists. Very, very bad things for the Supreme Court if those changes were to actually happen, which I don't think they will, because he's trying to go about this via executive order, and you can't do that. If you want to amend the Constitution, you have to actually go through the legislative process. So I don't think it's going to happen. But it's important that you know that Joe Biden is calling for this. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris. Her campaign is busted. She's been paying influencers, folks, to say nice things about her on social media, $150. This is the scraps that they pay people. $150. This woman has gotten millions and millions of dollars. 200 million, I think, is the last I've seen the campaign raise. That, and what, they're going to pay you $100 to say nice things about her on social media, which I think is borderline illegal. There should be a lawsuit because that might violate some non-disclosure, because you have to disclose campaign paraphernalia and campaign literature, and you have to disclose it as campaigning. So you can't just pay social media influencers money to campaign for you. There's a process, and you have to be sure that they disclose that they are being paid. So we're going to talk about that, but let's first get to the chaos that's erupted in Venezuela following the Sunday election. Now, I've waited for a little while to talk about this just because, I wanted enough time to pass to see what is going to happen here and to give it to you correctly, because both sides, they declared victory in Sunday's election. Today's show is going to break down how the Biden-Harris administration helped make this happen. So Nicolás Maduro, he claimed victory, and he alleges that he got 5 million votes, okay, while his opponent got 4.4 million. See how close it is there? It's 0.6 million off. He's lying, and he's trying to make it look close, it's believable. However, exit polling shows that he only had about 14 to 31% of the vote. Exit polling shows that Maduro did not win and the other guy, Gonzalez, won by a landslide. You don't really lose elections, by the way, when you're the one counting. So Maduro was the shoo-in after the former president, Chavez, stepped aside. He was the pick for Chavez, okay? He's just like him, a dictator. Subsequently, protests have broken out. Chaos has erupted all over the country. And, this looks very different from a dictator like Donald Trump, right? If you want to call him a dictator, go ahead. But I'm sorry, Donald Trump conceded power, okay? And he tells you not to trust the institutions. Like the CDC, the IRS with their 70,000 agents. Maduro, he's not like Donald Trump. He's not conceding power here, folks. He's not willing to concede power, even though the polling shows that he didn't win. The people tell you that the people who tell you to trust the people in charge, you should be able to question them freely and protect yourself from these institutions if they become corrupt. Those people who say, hey, you probably shouldn't trust the people in charge. You might want to protect yourself from these institutions if they ever become corrupt. I'm just going to say it. Donald Trump has said that. He's held that sentiment for the duration of his presidency. And that's not typically the actions of a dictator. However, the government saying, trust us, don't question your government. Those types of people and the people who try to take your Second Amendment right away, those people are typically dictators. The highest court in Venezuela, by the way, they upheld a ban on the candidacy of Maria Corina Machado, a longtime government foe and winner of the primary held by the opposition faction backed by the United States. So the United States has backed the opposition to Maduro officially. Okay, officially. Now, the talking heads, I think it was Michael Moore who praised Chavez, the former president. Leftists have praised mainly Chavez. I haven't seen anything come out on Maduro, but they did the same thing to their political opposition in Venezuela. I just told you about how their highest court upheld a ban on the candidacy. They tried to do that with Donald Trump here in this country. So we're not too far off here in the United States from becoming Venezuela. Okay, you see, they are using their highest court to try to ban the candidacy. And this almost happened, but thank goodness the Supreme Court operates and functions as it does. Joe Biden is trying to take away the functions of the Supreme Court because he wants to change the rules, because the Supreme Court actually did what the Supreme Court does and checked the government. And he wants to do away with the Supreme Court, essentially, because he didn't get his way. And he didn't get his way with the United States Supreme Court upholding a ban on the candidacy of his political opposition, President Donald Trump. Okay, so who do we know that tried to use the courts to remove their opposition? That's right, Joe Biden, and it didn't work, so he's changing the rules by term limiting Supreme Court justices, which is a really bad idea. Supreme Court justices should not have term limits. The Founding Fathers were very specific about that. They wanted them removed, the Supreme Court justices, they wanted them removed and separated from the political process, really. They wanted them to run, but not to be in this constant re-election mode, because that could cause an issue with their decision-making, their politics, their re-election, the politics of it all could affect decisions that they make on the Supreme Court. The Founding Fathers did, however, support and were in favor of Congress term limiting themselves. So I think it's kind of interesting. You've got Joe Biden screaming about term limits and wanting term limits for Supreme Court justices, but there's no talk about term limiting Congress, members of Congress. So Maduro, I want to point this out. Maduro in Venezuela He called Elon Musk the arch enemy. And he added that Elon Musk is, quote, the representation of the fascist ideology in the world, the economic power supporting the fascist ideology of the extreme right. So he's calling Elon Musk a fascist. Who else calls the Elon Musk a fascist, by the way? He's calling him a fascist because Elon Musk opened up his platform to more free speech, and he called Maduro a clown in a tweet. Elon Musk did. He said that Maduro is a clown. So he's calling Elon Musk a fascist for opening up the platform, and that's it. That's it. And they don't like free speech, dictators, okay? And who else do you know calls Elon Musk a fascist, and they hate X, they hate Twitter? And without it, we wouldn't be able to see what's going on in Venezuela right now. You can't see any of this stuff on Facebook. You can't see any of this stuff on Google, where the cops in Venezuela are taking off their uniforms and joining the protesters. There's videos of them toppling statues of the former president Chávez down. Chávez, the former president, his pick would have been Maduro. Okay, so weirdly, the United States, they have stated that they have serious concerns that the election was stolen. However, the United States failed to mention the easing of oil sanctions by the Biden administration. Okay, they also failed to mention that the Venezuelans make up large portions of the illegal immigration. Just ask anybody in Chicago. Most of the illegal immigration coming into the United States right now are from Venezuela, Venezuelans. And Joe Biden, he actually stopped the deportation of 400,000 Venezuelan migrants. So do you think these people are looking out for you? Do you think that they're looking out for you? They eased oil sanctions, despite, they have concerns about this election being stolen. They are working with this dictator. This dictator is sending people over here. I don't know what. I'm speculating that they're working with this dictator, Maduro and Chávez, the former president. They eased these oil sanctions. Now we're seeing just droves of illegal immigrants, illegal Venezuelan immigrants come into this country. What is going on? I just don't think these people are looking out for you. Kamala Harris, who was voted the most liberal senator in Congress during her time in Congress, she previously called for the masses to, quote, end up in the same place. Kamala Harris is pro-socialism. We know this. She is pro-socialism. She's the most liberal senator, and she's called for the masses to end up in the same place. Well, what does that mean? Well, I've gone through this before, and I've said equality and equity are two very different things. Equality treats everyone the same regardless of their needs or differences, and it provides equal opportunity, right? So you have the opportunity to become anything you want to be. We're just going to give you the equal opportunities to do that, and we're going to actually treat everybody the same. Equity is all about equal outcomes. They provide resources, i.e. money. You're all going to be equally poor under socialism and equity. Anytime somebody says equity, it's just socialism. Okay, that's what it is. It recognizes that people have different circumstances and needs and provides resources to help them achieve equal outcomes. Okay, and when you ensure equal outcomes, you end up with socialism. We don't share the same vision for the United States of America, the left and the right. We just don't. And the contrasts are very clear. I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. When we come back, I'll tell you how Joe Biden is going after the Supreme Court, how the founding fathers would literally be rolling in their graves if they found out what Joe Biden is trying to do with the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Like I said, he's going to try to do this executive order, but very dictatory, right? But you need the legislature to do it, and there's no way it's going to be dead on arrival in the House, and there's no way the House is going to put up with this. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, this is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Yes, we are in a thunderstorm watch until about noon. Thunderstorm. There is a storm going on in Venezuela, and that's where we left off when we took the break. We are going to be talking a little bit about socialism. And I wanted to point out Sean Penn, Michael Moore, Oliver Stone, a lot of these leftists on the, or a lot of these leftists, hold on. A lot of these leftists, what they would say about Chavez, he died in like, I think 2013 or something. I've got some quotes here from those on the left. You've got Oliver Stone, you've got Michael Moore. Here's a quote from Oliver Stone. I mourn a great hero to the majority of his people and those who struggle throughout the world for a place hated by the entrenched classes. Hugo Chavez will live forever in history. My friend, rest finally in peace, long earned. Michael Moore, who met with Chavez at a film festival in 2009, he said this: before they cheerleaded us into Iraq war, the United States media was busy cheering on the overthrow of Chavez. 54 countries around the world allowed the U.S. to detain and torture suspects. Latin America, thanks to Chavez, was the only place that said no. So he was celebrated by those on the left. Make no mistake, Chavez. Now I understand Maduro is different than Chavez, but not really the same. This is the same type of dictatorship that they want to install. Maduro is, claiming victory, although he only got like 30% of the vote. Exit polling shows. You've got González winning with a large 73.2% of the vote. And what's going on there is absolutely insane. There's been chaos. And like I was telling you, we do not want the same things for our country that the left does. Okay, the Michael Moores of the world, the Oliver Stones, the Kamala Harrises of the world. They want equal outcomes, equity, socialism. If you ensure equal outcomes, you end up with socialism. So the same people who say this country is headed in the wrong direction are the same people who still wave the American flag. Okay, I bet, and I'm willing to bet, if you knock on doors that have an American flag hanging from their garage and you ask them their political affiliation, you're going to get people who say, well, I lean right. Okay, the difference between us and them is that we still want to wave the flag. We're saying we're in the wrong direction. We're going in the wrong direction. We still want to fly the flag. The people on the left who think the direction of this country is headed the right way are the same people who hide the flag, because when they say we're headed in the right direction, what they really mean is away from America and America's values and what have been our traditional values. They want to move away from a constitutional republic to communism, to true communism and fascism. And the reason that conservatives think we're headed in the wrong direction is because they still love this country and they want this country to continue being what it has been, which is the greatest, most free country in the history of the world. Okay, so the people on the left want us to move towards something like Venezuela. Don't believe me? Bernie Sanders, just a couple of years ago, got out there and said that Venezuela was a great country. Okay, you can't make this stuff up. And Sean Penn's, the Michael Moores, the Oliver Stones, Kamala Harris quoted as being voted as the most liberal senator, said, quote, she called for the masses to end up in the same place. She wants equal outcomes, which inevitably gives you socialism. So big tech is one of the biggest threats to free people. They don't like big tech for a totally different reason. Okay, Maduro, Biden-Harris administration, they believe big tech is a threat to democracy, but for an entirely different reason. We think big tech is a threat to democracy. Maduro hates Elon on Twitter because you can see cops taking off their uniforms, joining the protesters. This is inspiring. You're starting to see people riot in the streets, tear down the statues of Chavez, who was a dictator. Okay, so and that's inspiring. And Maduro hates that. He does not want Elon's platform to exist because you can actually see what's going on. Harris hates Elon Musk. Joe Biden hates Elon Musk because he actually allows images of Donald Trump to be circulated on his platform on X after the attempted assassination. You know how Trump got back up, put his fist up in the air, said, "Fight, fight, fight." That's inspiring. That's very inspiring. But guess who's censoring that? Meta, Facebook. They're taking that picture down. You're not even allowed to share that photograph on Facebook anymore. On X, you can. So I have a big problem with big tech and the meta side of it, where you don't allow certain information, or you hide or you throttle certain information. I think that's a threat to free people. Punting a story and labeling it Russian disinformation, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, that is a threat to our constitutional republic. Throttling information, hiding information, not allowing information to exist on a platform, that's all dangerous for our constitutional republic. They also don't like big tech. They don't like the Elon Musk version of big tech. Okay. That picture of Donald Trump, they don't want that out there. And Elon Musk is allowing it to circulate on his platform. Maduro said, quote, "Elon Musk is the archenemy because he stands for free speech." That's why Maduro said that. He hates big tech, but for very different reasons why you and I hate big tech. We don't like big tech because they hide and throttle information and they don't allow certain information to get out there. He hates it because information is getting out there. The left constantly wants to interfere and determine which information is allowed in the public square, and Elon Musk is not the enemy until he had the gall, and he wasn't the enemy until he had the goal to come out and say, "Hey, look, I support freedom of speech." And big tech is truly the enemy because they are silencing certain information and certain voices, and it's terrible. It's terrible. I can't believe Meta is taking down the actual photo of President Donald Trump. That is one of the most iconic photos of probably modern history. It's one of the most iconic photos of a United States president, probably. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I promised I was going to talk about how Joe Biden is shredding up the United States Constitution. He's probably in the Oval, and he's quite literally got a paper shredder, and he's shredding up the United States Constitution. I wouldn't doubt it, because these reforms to the Supreme Court he wants to make before he's out of office, by the way, these are radical. He's calling for term limits. In addition to an enforceable ethics code, he also wants to put in a constitutional amendment to try to strike down immunity strike down the immunity in place for presidents, which is a big no-no. These things exist for a reason. The founding fathers put these things in place for a reason on the Supreme Court. So I'll be right back. We're going to chat about it. This is Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in. There is a severe thunderstorm warning until about noon. Cat, Democrats don't want separation of powers. They want complete power. Yes. They do want complete power. That is the Democrats. And before we took the break, I was telling you about the Supreme Court and how Joe Biden, he wants to just overhaul, make extreme changes to the United States Supreme Court. And it's not going to be good. The changes he wants is a constitutional amendment. They also want to get rid of the immunity for the president. And these things exist for a reason. And we're going to get into those reasons. The proposal is the logical conclusion to the Biden-Harris administration and the congressional Democrats' ongoing efforts to delegitimize the Supreme Court. They want to delegitimize the Supreme Court. Their calls to expand and pack the court will soon resume. It's telling that Democrats want to change the system that has guided our nation since its founding simply because they disagree with some of the court's decisions. This is dangerous. So the president's proposals would radically change and overhaul the United States Supreme Court. And it'll tilt the balance of power and erode not only the rule of law, but the American people's faith in our system of justice. Okay, so there are reasons why the Supreme Court exists the way it does right now. So Joe Biden, he says that he wants term limits. So we're going to start there on Illinois Supreme Court justices. The reason why Supreme Court justices don't run for election all of the time, now they do run for election, it's because it affects their decisions if they're constantly running for re-election. The second sentence of the Constitution, Article 3, Section 1 says, the judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation, which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. It's pretty clear what's going on here. This provision in the Constitution is designed to make sure the judges are independent. They can decide cases according to what the law requires without worrying about whether some powerful person or even a majority of people will object. Okay, so they need to be removed from the politics of it all. They need to not appeal to a majority of people. They need to really be independent and do what's required of the law instead of trying to make people like them. Okay, that's what politics is. That's what running for re-election is. And running for election, as Alexander Hamilton put it in the Federalist Papers, I've got it right here, page 78, right here in my hands. Judicial independence is the best expedient which can be devised in any government to secure a steady, upright, and impartial administration of the laws. Okay, so, if the Supreme Court were to run for re-election, would they look at the law or would they look at what's most favorable by a majority of people? Say abortion, for example. They ruled on abortion. They actually upheld the law the way it should be. They gave it to the states, which is how they determined or interpreted the law. And they gave it over to the states. Now, if they ran for re-election all the time, would they run on abortion? And now you've got Supreme Court justices talking about, abortion and not talking about the laws. And it's just term limits. Term limiting and getting justices to run for re-election is not a good idea. It removes judicial independence. People have routinely discussed term limits for Congress. I think it's kind of interesting that Joe Biden hasn't pushed for proposals for that. In term limits, the founding fathers constantly talked about term limits for members of Congress, not Supreme Court justices. God forbid you get a career politician who suckles at the taxpayer's teat for forever, right? Dick Durbin comes to mind. He's the biggest culprit of career politician who suckles at the taxpayers' teat and exists because of the taxpayers' funding and money. So the founding fathers, they talked about this in the Federalist Papers, page 53. Right, Alexander Hamilton talks about how they should limit themselves, members of Congress. The Supreme Court has said the president has immunity because sometimes presidents make decisions make mistakes when making decisions. Okay, so another thing that Joe Biden wants to get rid of is presidential immunity. Things that you do during your time as president, you can't be charged for afterwards. And Obama, look, folks, if this was law, Obama would still be behind bars for the things that he did during wartime. Okay, now I'm not saying that he should be behind bars for making terrible decisions as commander-in-chief, getting people killed, innocent citizens killed. I'm not saying he should be behind bars, because as president, you need to be able to make decisions. And sometimes making decisions means making mistakes, and you can't be charged for making mistakes as commander in chief. Okay, so Biden's proposal is going to radically overhaul the Supreme Court, and it will tilt the balance of power. And like I said, it's going to erode not only the rule of law, but the American people's faith in our justice system. And it's scary, and I think it's very telling that we've got Democrats changing a system that's guided our nation for years and years and years and years. Okay. And since its founding, just because they don't agree with a couple of the court's recent decisions. Joe Biden, he went around the Supreme Court, gave out student loan forgiveness anyway, despite the Supreme Court saying you can't do that. He did it anyway. And now they want to change the rules because they don't want to play by the rules. Okay, they want to change the rules. This is a man, Joe Biden, or whoever. I don't even think Joe Biden is running the country. Whoever is pulling the strings on the puppet that is Joe Biden. This guy believes that our, institutions, are so great, and they blame you for not trusting the institutions. You remember, trust the experts, trust the CDC, trust the IRS, trust the Ministry of Truth, that disinformation task force. You guys remember that? But, the institution of the court? No. By God, the Supreme Court, it needs to be changed. This institution needs to be changed. So the constitutional amendment is something that needs to be done legislatively. He wants to do a constitutional amendment for the president immunity thing. But you have to do that legislatively. So like I said, I don't think it's going to get anywhere. Kamala Harris, she's backing Joe Biden's calls for Supreme Court reform. It's not reform, it's changing it entirely. She says, quote, "Yet today, there is a clear lack of confidence facing the Supreme Court as its fairness is being called into question." Being called into question by who? You? You're the one calling in to question the Supreme Court's fairness. Nobody else is calling into question the Supreme Court's fairness. Okay. What happened to trusting our institutions there, Kamala? You sound like a radical right-wing extremist. Not trusting our institutions? Okay. And then she goes on, after numerous ethics scandals and decision after decision overturning long-standing precedent. So she says there's a clear lack of confidence because they've made decisions that overturn long-standing precedent. They're talking about Roe v. Wade, okay? That was a terrible decision, and they actually upheld the right law here in this case, where they gave it up to the states. And, she's one to talk about long-standing precedent. Isn't it long-standing precedent to, Kamala run in a primary? You're like the only person in the United States history, at least modern history, to not run in a primary and get on the ticket in a fair way, and in a democratic way. You received no votes, but yet you're on the ticket and likely the presidential nominee. So tell me more about long-standing precedent, because long-standing precedent would be, keeping the Supreme Court the way the founding fathers had intended by not term limiting them. not amending the constitutional amending the Constitution to remove presidential immunity. That's longstanding precedent. Running in a primary, longstanding precedent. So I'm going to be right back. This is Conservative Cat. When we come back, Kamala Harris, her campaign, they were busted for paying influencers to say nice things about her. That's next. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, thunderstorms until about noon today. It was supposed to get really hot yesterday and it didn't. There was it was hot, but it just didn't get as hot as I was thinking. So it looks like we're gonna see a little bit cooler temperatures at night. I'm excited about that. Into the 60s. I like when it cools down at night. It's just too hot. When it's just like the low is like 90 degrees. It's like, oh, I can't handle this anymore. Hey, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Kamala Harris, how she's paying influencers to say nice things about her. You're probably going to see a lot of people say that Kamala Harris had this big crowd at her rally yesterday, and that's just not true. They didn't show up for her. There was some sort of singer, and I don't understand. The left is very weird. They had some sort of like famous singer. I've never heard of her before, Stallion. And she got up there in a crop top with a few other women, a few other ladies, and they started dancing kind of provocatively, and it just doesn't. You're running for president of the United States, and this looks like a Nicki Minaj concert. You know what I mean? Like, it just weird. But everybody showed up for the free concert. They didn't go to Kamala Harris's rally. A lot of people were leaving, caught on camera leaving after the concert, and even before Kamala took the stage. Okay, so people showed up to her rally to see the concert. I'm going to tell you about how the Harris campaign, is offering paid post opportunities for influencers to promote the vice president. That's next. They did the same thing with Hillary Clinton, folks. This is the same tired tactic. Just so you know, like Hillary, Kamala Harris, she's going to continue to do rallies with bigger and bigger stars and free concerts to draw crowds because she can't. Kamala Harris can't draw a crowd. Right before the election, most likely it's going to be Taylor Swift. This was Megan Thee Stallion. I don't know. I haven't heard of her. I'm not much of a rap person. She looks like Nicki Minaj, this Megan Thee Stallion, and I guess she's big. And they had a bunch of crop tops on and twerking. You know, this is the presidency of the United States, by the way. To kind of just have people up there twerking, it's distasteful. They did the same thing with Hillary, though, so make no mistake, they're going to do the same thing with Kamala Harris. Hillary, she had Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, on and on and on. When Hillary would speak, they had a crowd screaming so loud, you would think that Hillary Clinton was a popular rock star. But it was all staged. It was all fake. And it's going to be the same thing with Kamala Harris. It's cringy, it's fake, and extremely unlikable. And I think that the American people can see right through it. So another thing about Kamala Harris that is completely fake, I was telling you before we took the break, conservative cat, she's paying people to send out emails and to make social media posts about her. Yes, this is actually happening. According to the left, people are bending over backward for Kamala Harris, that she's polling so much higher than Joe Biden. They claim that she's authentic, charismatic, and relatable, which is just, I don't, what? However, anyone who is even remotely relatable doesn't have to pay people to fake support her. Which is exactly what her campaign is doing right now. They're doing so well. They're sending out emails. The campaign is sending out an email that offers people to be paid if they post about Kamala Harris in a favorable way or send out emails in a favorable way. So, yes, this might be illegal. Non-disclosure is illegal. You have to disclose that it is paid for by a political campaign. That's just the way it goes, okay? So if you're listening on the radio, you'll hear a political ad, and then it'll say at the end of the ad, and this is mandated by law, paid for by the friends of X politician, right? So this is might be illegal if they're not having these influencers who get paid for these posts disclose that it's campaign paraphernalia. So on YouTube, you guys can find me, Conservative Cat Show. Just type it in your search bar. You guys can see the tweet here. And this is the email. This is a tweet of the email that the campaign, the Harris campaign, sent out. They're offering paid posts opportunities to influencers to promote the vice president. What? So just think about it. Our campaign hoped to get votes from people who are easily influenced by TikToks. Okay, that goes beyond desperation. And I think we can almost be certain that Trump has never paid anybody to do such a thing. Okay, Trump has probably never paid anybody to speak in a favorable way of him. Okay, so it's also pathetic because Trump really does have organic support. I've been to Trump rallies. There's thousands of people there, thousands of young, old people. I mean, I all of my friends, I think I've met pretty much all of my new friends anyway, outside of high school at Trump rallies. Right there in front row, right? All these young people at these Trump rallies. It's really kind of cool to see. He draws people from every race, color, creed, religion. All of my most recent friends have been from Trump rallies. So it's really interesting to see this inauthentic campaign and the money that they've got. They've got so much money to where they can start paying these people. It's $150 cash paid bonus incentive as a small token of appreciation for those selected. So you have to go through an application process, I guess. You have to put in how many followers you have on TikTok. And then they will give you the $150 to promote her. So it's just really pathetic. The support for Trump is real. The support for Harris is even worse than the support for Biden. Okay, I think that she has a very small group of people who support her, typically childless cat ladies, white women in the suburbs, right, who are extremely racist. Those are the types of people who support Kamala Harris because they have this thing called white guilt, and they think that because she is a Black indigenous person of color, they have to support her. But she doesn't have to talk about her policies. The woman is just so awkward. She doesn't even know what to do with her hands, Kamala Harris. When you watch her, you're like, oh, this is kind of cringy. It's kind of painful to even watch her. So the media is trying to make her look more popular than she really is. There's a reason the media doesn't tell you Trump is popular, because it's blatantly obvious. Kamala, they're out there, the media, they're doing their thing where they're saying, oh, she's so popular with young people. She's so popular. She's so popular. And they don't have to do that with Trump. The media doesn't have to do it because it's so blatantly obvious he's popular, especially because declaring someone to be popular is not something that needs to be, you don't need to convince somebody that somebody's popular. Okay. So additionally, the Democrats have the nerve to keep calling the Trump campaign weird, which is one of the most pathetic tactics I've ever seen. And I've got this clip. It's a supercut of Democrats and the media calling Republicans weird. It's almost like as if on cue, they said, hey, let's do a new campaign where we just call Republicans weird. So let's take a listen to the supercut. You guys are going to like it. Here we go.
Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate are weird. Deeply and profoundly weird.
They are weird.
These Republicans just being weird. It's just weird. It's really weird.
Republican weirdness goes even deeper.
He said a lot of things that are weird, a weird style that he brings, weird policies. Let's start with the weird thing, because it is a thing.
Just plain weird.
What was weird was his talking about Diet Mountain Dew. Who drinks Diet Mountain Dew?
You ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me, that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior.
Weird and cultish.
These are weird people on the other side.
He kind of doubled down on his weird ideas.
I think weird is probably generous.
Simply weird. These guys are...
Okay, this goes on for 2 minutes. I'm not going to play the entire 2-minute clip, but everything about the left is weird. Come on, they glorify sexual preferences. They celebrate skin color. They literally think men can get pregnant. All of those things are very bizarre. Drinking Diet Mountain Dew? I mean, that's... What? These people think it's weird because they live in a world that's totally separate than of our reality. You and I have the same reality. We drink Mountain Dew, okay? We eat Skittles from the gas station, right? These people they don't even know what Skittles are. They are the most bizarre. Hell, they think it's okay for kids to dress up as furries and go pee in litter boxes at public schools. Yes, that's a thing. Additionally, Harris has always been one of the most weirdest politicians in American history. Projection is the oldest tactic in the book. We know this. This is just projection. They're projecting. And their newest attacks on Trump and his running mate are the most pathetic things that I think that they could have ever come up with. How can a presidential campaign be this bad? And what's even more infuriating is that this is what they think the American people care about. They think that, they think it's insulting to call J.D. Vance weird. No, why don't they start talking about policy, her political record, instead of labeling someone as weird? Really, that's the best they can come up with, because she has no record. She has no good policy. She locked people up on petty drug offenses, marijuana offenses. She locked him up. She went after people. What was it? It was some people who caught Planned Parenthood. They were selling baby parts. And instead of going after Planned Parenthood, the individuals who admitted on tape that they were selling baby parts, she went after the individuals who caught them on tape saying that, okay, who recorded those Planned Parenthood individuals who admitted to selling baby parts. She went after the people who recorded them. Okay, so a political record. What political record? Her political record is crap. She's not going to talk about her policy because there is no good policy there. Democrats want to make political correctness the status quo while labeling normal things like families as weird. Having a family, drinking Mountain Dew. I guess it's all weird. That's the most bizarre campaign move in history of the president of the United States, where they're labeling things like families and having children as weird. And I'm going to get to that here in just a second, because somebody on MSNBC said, quote, having children is natalism is a way of replacing minorities. It's truly bizarre, because J.D. Vance went out there and he said that women should have children and we should be having more children, not less children. She said that J.D. Vance is trying to replace minorities with white children because he called for people to have more kids. That makes no sense. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, he said that the electorate is energized since Vice President Kamala Harris launched her presidential campaign. He said, quote, Democrats are ready to go. Her message is one that I think resonates with the American people. This is really funny. He talks about her message, which I don't even know what her message is. As I said, what's the policy here? What kind of policy talking points does she have? She talks about the failures of the Joe Biden Kamala Harris administration. She lies about the failures, claiming that Joe Biden created all of these jobs, 15 million jobs it was, even though 2/3 of them were recovered by COVID-19. They were bounce back jobs. 5 million of them went to foreign-born workers. The other part of them all went to government jobs. They're all government jobs. And that's terrifying. Net new jobs for foreign-born workers under Trump, 400,000. 5 million versus 400,000. So foreign-born workers, that's all the jobs that Joe Biden so-called created. There's also the 70,000 new IRS employees. Are those real jobs? Are those jobs created by the economy? No, they're not. So you can make things, as I've said before, you can make things way less efficient. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is a star at this. You can make things less efficient in the government and add more jobs. Government loves doing this, specifically Illinois, because we're a union state where we have to come up with all kinds of things for these guys to do. The reason why you see the orange cones outside and down the highways is because they've got the guys out there with little tiny spoons doing road construction when a modern technology could do it. Now you need, if you say, hey guys, let's do it with spoons instead of shovels, now you need like 25 times the workforce, and you have to pay those people with taxpayer money, right? So Harris, she's claimed that, Joe Biden has gotten COVID under control. She claims that, they recovered after the pandemic. We know that not to be true, because under the Democrats, 200,000 businesses were closed for good nationwide. There were more deaths under Joe Biden's term than Donald Trump's. Those are just facts. People became incredibly poor. They lost their businesses. There's a mental health crisis. Okay. So when Kamala Harris talks about policy or record or anything of substance, it's really nothing to do with her. She usually just talks to Joe Biden and her administration and what they did. But as I just ran through, all of their so-called accomplishments, not accomplishments. Okay, so Governor J.B. Pritzker, he doubled down on his digs at J.D. Vance. And I want to play this because he amplifies this baseless rumor I was talking about yesterday. Republican presidential candidate, vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, there's this rumor that he has relationships with couches or whatever. I don't know where it came from. But J.B. Pritzker is baselessly talking about this rumor on ABC. So I'm going to play that here coming up in just a little bit, but I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. JB, he's out there. He's doubling down on his digs at Senator J.D. Vance. He's amplifying this baseless rumor about the Republican vice presidential candidate's relationship with couches. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Polls about Kamala Harris are heartening to you and other Democrats. But do you see that bump as more a relief that Joe Biden got out of the race, or a strong endorsement of Kamala Harris, who, as we mentioned earlier, had dropped out of the 2020 race very early?
Look, the electorate is energized. Democrats are ready to go. You've seen hundreds of thousands of people signing up to volunteer. Plus, our candidate is the Energizer Bunny. She's been everywhere all the time over the last several days. And we're excited about that, to get to see her in the battleground states and all over the country. And her message is one that I think resonates with people. One of those things, of course, is pointing out the differences between these two candidates. I mean, on the other side, they're just weird. I mean, they really are. The things that they stand for. Donald Trump, of course, is afraid of windmills, and he talks about all kinds of crazy stuff. His running mate, as you probably have heard, is getting known for his obsession with couches, and somebody who is hiding his views on a woman's right to choose. And then just broadly, the attack on people who are childless, and saying that we had to raise taxes on childless people, calling them cat ladies. I think he apologized to cats, but he hasn't apologized to women.
So the progressive and possible contender to be vice president, that is J.B. Pritzker. Kamala Harris's, possible running mate, told ABC that the new presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, who hasn't received any votes, by the way, by the people, or from the people, he told ABC that she's the Energizer Bunny on the campaign trail. And he said that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are just weird. JB, you are weird. Your whole family is weird. Okay, don't get me started on your cousin Jennifer, okay, who I'm still not convinced isn't just you in drag, okay? JB Pritzker, possibly Jennifer Pritzker isn't even a real person. I'm telling you, maybe it's just JB dressed in drag. Jen Pritzker looks a lot like JB. Am I right? Come on, let me know in the comments section or on our text line 309-451-9299. But Susan and Nick Pritzker, his family, they've been funneling money to the front lines of these Hamas protests across college campuses. J.B. Pritzker, and this is interesting, I think he's on the short list for the VP slot, and I think he's going to get it, folks. I've been saying this for a while. I don't think that he was going to ever be a presidential pick, right, or a presidential contender, because he's just too ambitious. And the deep state, they don't want ambitious people. They want good puppets, people who will not make any waves. And Pritzker, for all of the things that he is ambitious. Okay, I will give him that. And he's on this short list for VP. Why? Because he's got money. He's got enough money to continue paying for social media influencers to say nice things about Kamala Harris online. Okay, so he's got tons of money. Also, Kamala Harris, she has a bit of a problem because she is a rabid leftist, and she is the most, or was deemed the most liberal senator. She's got an issue with saying things like Israelis have the right to defend themselves. She doesn't want to say that because it doesn't resonate with her base, and she doesn't want to alienate her base. And she finally, she did come out and say it. And she met with Benjamin Netanyahu. Subsequently, she got the endorsement of the war-hungry Barack Obama because he wants to continue lining his pockets with Bell helicopter stock and Honeywell stock, right? That's why he needed Kamala Harris to come out and say, hey, and meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. And he needed her to not be anti-Israel, because we're sending all kinds of weaponries over there, and war makes money, and Barack Obama wants to make money. Pritzker is Jewish as well, by the way, so that might help her obtain the votes of people who are concerned that she might be kind of anti-Semitic, considering she loves the pro-Palestinian protesters. Harris, along with dozen members of Congress, were absent during the Netanyahu address. We know that. In fact, according to Axios, 100 of the 212 House Democrats and 27 of the 51 Senate Democrats were absent from Netanyahu's address. a possible signal of change in the party's reception to Israel. So is Harris going to continue to provide Israel aid if she became president? Harris's decision to not preside over Netanyahu's address to Congress was, for many onlookers, the greatest indication yet that she might split from Biden's support for Israel if she were to become the official Democratic nominee. The Wall Street Journal is reporting, folks, that current and former officials say Harris is likely not going to keep some of Biden's advisors and staff, including Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who have, advised the president to continue supporting Israel because they're an ally, unlike Ukraine, by the way. But so she might need JB because he's Jewish. So I don't know. If only news would spread that JB isn't as, pro-Jewish as he tries to portray himself, and that his family is quite literally funding these anti-Israel protests everywhere. A Politico report, as I discussed with you, his family contributions. His family is contributing to these encampments across colleges around the country, in these colleges across the country. Pritzker said it's a completely false story, and he goes, I think you should read the Rolling Stone story that came out and debunked the Politico report. Okay, Politico is not by any means a right-wing media outlet, okay, that they're a liberal media outlet, and he cites the Rolling Stone article, but the Rolling Stone article does not dismiss the fact that Susan Pritzker serves on the Solidaire Network board as the treasurer. Okay, the Solidaire Network on their website displays the Adala Justice Project as a movement partner. The Adala Justice Project, leaders from that project have been arrested on college campuses all over the place. The Solidaire Unity and Power Fund moves money to the front lines of, quote, anti-war and racial justice organizing. They're giving money to the Adala Justice Project, and they're sharing the project itself. You need to know that they're sharing videos like this one. I'm going to share this with you. It's incredible. These are like 4 to 7 year olds. Like, that's the ages here. They're about 4 to 7 years old. They're holding a banner that reads Free Palestine. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
We'll never be defeated. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Zionism has got to go. Zionism has got to go. The children united. The children.
So you want to talk about weird, JB? Well, I think that's weird. Your family funding the Adala Justice Project, who is getting kids out there, ages approximately 3 to 7 years old, and they're holding a banner that says Free Palestine, and the kids are screaming, hey, hey, ho, ho, Zionism has got to go. Young children in this video. You want to know what's weird? That's weird. That's really weird. And like I've always said, Zionism is just the belief that Israel is a Jewish state and that it should exist as a Jewish state. That's all Zionism is. I do want to take a quick break, but when we come back, State Representative Adam Niemerg, he comments on this recently passed legislation here in the state of Illinois, and it's been touted by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and it's also been supported at a national level. They want to take what's been passed here in Illinois and take it to the national level. And Vice President Kamala Harris has said she wants to take what's been done here in Illinois to the national level, which kind of proves to me that Governor J.B. Pritzker is on the short list for contenders here for the vice presidential slot. Kamala Harris is vice president, running alongside her on that ticket. But Illinois Governor JB, he supported this legislation. And what it does, it ensures that medical debt is not calculated, or it doesn't go on your credit report, on individual's credit report. So in Illinois, because this passed, your medical debt will not appear on your credit report. So I want to talk about that here on the other side. This is Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Conservative Cat on YouTube. Conservative Cat Show. Type it in your search bar. This one's going to be good. This is going to be some good tape. Good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Before we get to Adam Niemerg recently commenting on some legislation, this legislation was, of course, touted by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and supported at a national level by the Vice President, Kamala Harris. Now, this legislation, what it does, it eliminates medical debt from your credit report. So here in Illinois, you are no longer going to have your medical debt on your credit report. And you're like, Kat, this is awesome. Well, we're going to get into this because this is much bigger than what this surface level, it's not going to be on my credit report. This legislation is going to be a catalyst to implementing universal government health care. This is the Democrats' MO. They do this thing where they throw pennies at you and they say, look what I did for you. And then they continue to rule over your life. Okay, step one, forgiving all the debt, or the next step is going to forgive all the debt. Step one is saying that it doesn't have to go on your credit report. Step two is forgiving all of the debt, which legislation recently passed where Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to forgive, like, I think $1 billion worth of healthcare debt. And it's not forgiving. That money just doesn't go away. The state buys it. So then taxpayers have to pay for it. It's the same thing with the student loan debt. Okay, I didn't rack up that medical debt. Somebody else did, and now I have to pay for it. Okay, this is socialism. This is government-run healthcare. That's what this is about. What we should be focused on is lowering inflation. Property taxes should be coming down, making Illinois prosperous for working class people to where you have the money to pay your medical bills. Okay, that we should be working on that kind of thing first. And that can't happen if we're just buying up all of the debt using state taxpayer money. It's going to make property taxes even worse, right? Your taxes are going to become even worse. So we're going to get to this legislation because it's important. It affects you. But I do want to play this. This is really funny, this clip. This guy, he does this where he, makes these parody type videos. This video is going to be illegal in California in just a couple of weeks. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
The Sucker-Lotter Cox, a repulsive figure in our modern political landscape, displays a noticeable physical prowess compared to President Potato Head. She gracefully descends the airplane stairs with a nimble jog, a vast improvement over her kid-sniffing partner. Yet, curiously, this cackling idiot seems to be wearing knee pads beneath her pantsuit, a peculiar choice that raises questions about her behavior and preparation. As the Sucker-Lotter Cox begins her tour of a single restaurant in Atlanta, the local police and Secret Service seem to have sent their best agents to protect her. As these agents swarm this cackling idiot like liberals fighting over a free gender transition coupon, Kamala seems well protected, even if it is from a far less diverse group of agents. Oddly enough, Agent Fupa and her band of diversity hires are nowhere to be found. However, the Secret Service seems to have recruited Steve Urkel to protect the Sucker-Lotter Cox. As the Sucker-Lotter Cox finally takes the stage, she is unable to resist indulging in her idiotic behavior. With a laugh reminiscent of a hyena's fart, she performs her signature restarted seal clap, an action that puts her stupidity on full display. Upon finally reaching the microphone, the Sucker-Lotter Cox, with her idiotic laughter, cackles and waves to the audience for several minutes. She then spends the next half hour lamenting about her one-eared cheesy poof adversary. You see, friends, the Sucker-Lotter Cox has no real accomplishments to campaign on. Thus, she resorts to critiquing the mean orange man and attempting to inflame racial divisions in a bid to garner support. As the Sucker-Lotter Cox yammers on, blaming all her and Joe's failures on the actions of Trump, even P. Diddy's acoustic grandson seems to lose interest. Bored by Camel Toe's stupid speech, he opts to play Monopoly Go on his Obama phone.
Oh, I know that was a longer clip, but folks, that was hilarious. That was a great clip. The Sugalagacox. He calls her the Sugalagacox, where she is. And he looks at her as if, she's out in the wild. Kamala Harris. So she was in Atlanta at this rally. There were a lot of people there. They didn't pack the stadium where they sold out, but there was a free concert. Megan, the stallion, I don't know. She looks like Nicki Minaj. Her music is kind of similar. She twerks. She wears crop tops. She did a performance at the stadium there in Atlanta, and there were people there. I mean, as Kamala Harris is talking, this guy behind P. Diddy's, I think, grandson is behind Kamala Harris, and he gets out his phone, and he seems very uninterested, and I don't know what he's doing. He's probably playing Monopoly on his Obama phone, right? So I needed to play that clip for you. Let's get to this on the other side. Adam Niemerg, he calls out some of this legislation that we've enacted at the state level. Vice President Kamala Harris recently spoke in favor of eliminating medical debt from an individual's credit report at the national level. This is problematic. These people don't care if you rack up all kinds of medical debt, because really what this does at the end of the day, it's going to incentivize people to rack up even more medical debt. If there's no disincentive to rack up medical debt, the only disincentive would be because it goes on your credit report. And now, if there's no disincentive, people are just going to rack up medical debt, and they're not going to be held accountable for that debt. But you and I will be, because Pritzker also passed legislation where he's trying to buy out with taxpayer money. Illinois taxpayers are going to be buying out nearly $1 billion of medical debt if he gets his way, J.B. Pritzker. So there's a lot going on here. We're going to hit it all when we come back. It's Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. outside. The storm is picking up. A thunderstorm warning until about noon today. Thunderstorm. Be careful out there. It looks like there's quite a bit of lightning, quite a bit of wind. So before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Governor J.B. Pritzker signing a couple pieces of legislation. He's aimed at trying to reduce the medical debt on Illinoisans, which I get it, folks. Medical debt sucks. But this is not going to do anything to protect you from getting more debt. It's only going to make the debt impossible to pay off. Okay, so House Bill 5290, a medical debt forgiveness bill, dedicates approximately $10 million in state funding to purchase outstanding Illinois medical debt, with the goal of Illinois taxpayers eventually buying out nearly $1 billion in medical debt. So what they're doing is they are going to continue to take away your spending power, your purchasing power, by taxing you into oblivion to pay for other people's debt. And now you're going to be, your medical debt isn't going to be on your credit report, which I don't know if that's necessarily a great decision, because now you're going to get people who rack up medical debt, and there's no disincentive in doing that. It used to be, hey, I'm not going to rack up medical debt because I don't want it to go on my credit report. But now you're going to have people in crippling amounts of debt. And the Democrat Party doesn't care. They just want to say that, hey, we're going to buy out your debt for you. Hey, we're going to make it to where it's not on your credit report because we care about you. Actually, it's much worse for you in the long run, because you're going to have to pay taxes on all of that. You're going to have to pay for the state to buy out, because remember, folks, the state doesn't make money. They take money. And then, not to mention, this incentivizes people to rack up even more debt. So J.B. Pritzker has supported this. He's touted this legislation at a state level. Kamala Harris, while speaking in Philadelphia, said this about similar legislation at a national level.
And under Joe Biden's leadership, finally, we took on Big Pharma and finally gave Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices. We also took on the issue of debt, which makes so many people feel like they can never get ahead. Take, for example, medical debt. We are now making it so medical debt can no longer be included on your credit score.
Okay, so JB, Kamala Harris, they all have the same sentiment here, where they want to get rid of medical debt. They want to get it to where it doesn't show up on your credit report. State Representative Adam Niemerg says the next step is forgiving all of the debt. The step after that is implementing some sort of government-run healthcare. That's what this is all about. If you want to help Americans, if you want to help Illinoisans with their debt, with their spending power, what you need to do is lower property taxes, get the inflation down. You need to start making Illinois and the country really prosperous for working class people. You know, I had talked about Governor J.B. Pritzker and how he offered this child tax credit, right? So the child tax credit that you're going to get here in Illinois is equal to like 20 cents a day. Okay, so maximum Illinoisans, they can get this tax credit at a state level, and you could get $300 a year. And that's if you have 3 children. And if you're within a certain income bracket, joint income bracket. And, you know, he says, oh, this is going to lift people out of poverty. This is going to end childhood poverty, or it's a big step in ending childhood poverty. When you calculate it out, that tax credit is equal to about 20 cents a day. That's it. So this is what they do. They throw pennies at you, and they don't get to actual root causes of the problem. And the root cause of the problem here is that Americans and Illinoisans don't have money to pay their debts. And they go into debt because they don't have enough purchasing power, because inflation's too high, taxes are too high. And these Democrats, you know, I have never seen big government solve any of my problems, not one. Pritzker, who's born a billionaire, Kamala Harris, who has just raised $200 million in campaign funding. Okay, she is a politically elite as well. They're the same people who tell you that they're going to help. They don't know what you're going through. They have no idea what you're going through. All right. You guys have a blessed day. That's going to do it for us. Be safe out there in the storm. Bye-bye. Love you. We'll talk again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.